You know, sometimes it only takes a single event to completely redefine the political landscape of an entire state. And as we're going to explore today, based on analysis from webfitnews.co.nz, that is exactly what just happened in one of India's most powerful states.
And look, that isn't an exaggeration. That is the new reality after what took place on the morning of Wednesday, January 28, 2026. A single, shocking incident that sent tremors from the rural heartlands of Maharashtra all the way to the corridors of power in Mumbai and Delhi.
So, what exactly happened? Let's get into the hard facts. We're looking at a chartered Learjet 45, flight VT-SSK, making its final approach to Baramati Airport, coming in from Mumbai. On board was the state's Deputy Chief Minister, Ajit Pawar. The time was about 8:45 a.m.
But this wasn't just some silent technical failure happening thousands of feet in the air. This quote gets to a really crucial human element. People on the ground knew something was wrong. Local business owners said they heard this strange, deafening noise just moments before the plane veered off its path and exploded on impact.
And the location of this tragedy, well, it's just dripping with symbolism. Baramati wasn't just another stop on his itinerary. It was the heart of the Pawar family's power, their fortress for decades. It was the bastion that he personally built and commanded. For the end to come here, in the very seat of his control, well, it transforms a center of power into the site of a deep political rupture.
See, to really get why his death is such a seismic event, you have to understand the sheer scale of the power he wielded. Ajit Pawar, known everywhere as Dada, he wasn't just another politician. He was the man who made the state's political math actually work. This timeline here does a great job of laying out his 4-decade ascent. I mean, it starts way back in 1982 in cooperative politics, and by 91, he's already on the national and state stage. But his real power, his true influence, was cemented as Deputy Chief Minister, a role he held multiple times under 4 different chief ministers. This wasn't just a career, it was a constant, calculated accumulation of power. And here's the key. His power wasn't just political, it was administrative. He built this reputation for being a ruthlessly effective, no-nonsense leader who was obsessed with results. His grip on the state's finances was legendary, and his ability to work with literally any political alliance made him absolutely indispensable. And that pragmatic, often ruthless approach wasn't just for building projects. Oh no, it defined the most dramatic chapter of his entire career, the political war against his own uncle and mentor, the patriarch Sharad Pawar. And this slide right here breaks down his masterstroke. Back in 2023, he didn't just walk away, he took the party with him. By getting a majority of the MLAs on his side, the Election Commission of India gave him the official party name and its famous clock symbol. It was a complete political coup that left his uncle with the moral high ground, sure, but stripped him of the entire party machine. And this is where the story takes its final, tragic twist. Just before the crash, there were whispers of a political reconciliation, something people were calling the Pawar experiment for local elections, a hint of a family reunion. This tragedy slams that door shut, forever, leaving that chapter completely unresolved.
Okay, so that's the man. Now let's talk about the massive void he leaves behind, because his death wasn't just a personal loss. Our source analysis calls it a structural shock to the state's entire political system, and that's exactly what it is.
I mean, just look at this list. This wasn't some ceremonial post. He was the finance minister, juggling the budget and the state's debt. He was in charge of state excise, a huge source of revenue. He was the guardian minister for Pune, the state's second biggest city. The administrative crisis created by his absence is immediate, and it is vast.
And if you want to put a number on that responsibility, here it is, 9.32 lakh crore rupees. That was the projected state debt on his desk. Just let that sink in for a second. That is the scale of the financial leadership vacuum we are now talking about. Politically, this chart says it all. The ruling Mahudi alliance is now in a really precarious spot. Think of it like a 3-legged stool. Ajit Pawar's NCP faction wasn't just a minor partner. It was a critical, load-bearing leg. You kick that leg out from under it, and the whole structure becomes fundamentally unstable.
So, all of this leads us to a profoundly uncertain future. His death doesn't just create a power vacuum. It raises a whole series of critical questions that are going to define Maharashtra politics for years to come.
First up,
the most obvious one. What happens to his party? He held that faction together through sheer force of will and political muscle. Without him, who steps up? And can they stop it from splintering or even merging back with Sharad Pawar's group?
Then there's the government. The Mahayuti alliance just lost its chief rural strategist, its main connection to the powerful cooperative networks. So how do they fill that gap? How do they maintain their grip on the state without him?
And of course, this brings us full circle, back to his uncle. Does this awful tragedy, paradoxically, create an opening for Sharad Pawar? With his nephews suddenly gone from the chessboard, can his faction of the NCP reclaim the political ground it lost?
In the end, this quote from the analysis really hits the nail on the head. This wasn't just a fatal accident, it was a geopolitical event. The entire trajectory of Maharashtra has been permanently changed.
And so, we're left with this one final haunting question. For more than half a century, the name Pawar has basically been a synonym for power in Maharashtra. Now, with its most dominant modern figure gone and the family line itself fractured, the biggest question of all is simply this.